By air and by sea, this search grows more urgent as the hours pass. 53 submariners were on board the KRI Nanggala-402 in waters north of Bali on Wednesday morning. They were taking part in what should have been a routine training exercise when contact with their vessel was lost.
The submarine is now silent. There's no sound. We can only use sonar.
The search is reaching a critical point. Even if the submarine is intact, those on board will soon run out of oxygen.
Until the deadline, which is 3 a.m. on Saturday, we will maximize every effort.
Experts are concerned the submarine may have sunk too far and collapsed under extreme pressure.
The deeper a submarine goes, the more water pressure increases on the submarine. Every 10 meters, there is 1 kilogram of pressure added to each centimeter of the body of the submarine.
Indonesia's neighbours, Singapore and Malaysia, are assisting with the search. An Australian Navy vessel is also on site. Indonesian authorities say the submarine was in good condition despite being built in the late 1970s. It completed a 2-year refitting process in South Korea in 2012 and recently completed scheduled maintenance in Indonesia.
50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
Good morning. Commander Mike Steffens here, Commanding Officer, Patrol Squadron 26. It's good to be with you today. Today we're going to share with you our recent flight over the South China Sea. This is a flight that we conduct routinely and in accordance with international law. And this flight is just another small example of the U.S. Navy's long-standing presence in the region. Before we get started, I'd like to take a moment and share my appreciation and admiration, really, for the sailors of Patrol Squadron 26. They're an impressive crew. You know, our sailors put themselves through vigorous training. We prepare for these flights throughout the year, and really, they make sacrifices to make sure that we're ready to fly and fight. Now, you'll notice the crew today isn't wearing masks. And we take prudent measures to make sure that our crews mitigate any spread of COVID and that they're ready to fly. This crew is an extremely tight-knit group, and not wearing masks really allows us to maintain safety of flight and optimizes that speed of communication and clarity, especially when those quick decisions matter. As soon as that aircraft door opens, we take prudent measures to make sure our crew remains healthy and ready. Now, as a patrol squadron, we conduct a variety of tasks to serve the fleet. But ultimately, we're serving as those eyes and ears, patrolling ahead of the force, and closely monitoring our adversaries. We provide valuable information to decision makers, and every day we demonstrate that we're ready. We take pride in operating at grace distance, well ahead of the force, gathering information, and really serving as a strategic deterrent. Now, as we close out here, our operations continue, COVID or otherwise. They always have, and they will continue. I'm humbled to be with you today. The Indo-Pacific region remains one of the U.S. Navy's top priorities. We'll continue to operate routinely, safely, lawfully in the Pacific. We're committed to strengthening our partnerships with our regional allies and friends. We look forward to seeing you on the flight line. Thank you. Do that one more time, however you had that.
So for me, I'm trying just to coordinate their activities. So you can see one of the things that we're doing right here. We are taking a couple pictures of a merchant ship right here. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to look for a spinning radar right here, which is what you can see right there. So basically my job is to, a lot of what I'm doing is looking at this TSD. And you can see there's a bunch of stuff out here, right? So all of these little yellow contacts are merchant ships that are out there. So we'll find one that we're very interested in, and I'll say, hey, I want you guys to image that merchant ship. They then slew the camera to it, and then we start taking pictures of it and try and collect some data that way. So sort of managing that entire effort is mostly what I do on the crew. I'm Lieutenant Witry. I am the tactical coordinator for this aircrew. We're flying here with Combat Aircrew 4. And so what my job is as the tactical coordinator is I'm managing the efforts of the crew that's in the back of the plane here. So you can see the guys that are sitting behind me. We've got a couple of sensor operators. We've got a co-tactical coordinator. So we've got a couple of different types of sensor operators. Some of them are acoustic. So when we're doing anti-submarine warfare and trying to find and track subs, they're kind of the primary sensor operators during that evolution. I'm trying to manage their efforts. The two guys that you can see behind me are both electronic warfare operators. So their job on the plane is to operate both the radar and the camera, as well as a couple of other systems. And while we're doing that, I'm managing the efforts for how we're employing those sensors. So what you can see that we're doing right here is we are taking a couple of pictures of a merchant ship, which is what you can see on this screen right here. So we've got an electro-optical camera, and then we've got an infrared camera right here. They're all part of the same system, but just two different lenses. And so what I'm doing right here is you can see up here, this is essentially a map of the world. You can see our aircraft right there, so you can see where we are in space. And all of these little yellow contacts around here are all various merchant ships that are out in the water. So a lot of what I'm doing is I'm trying to find, like, hey, I'm interested in this merchant ship, electronic warfare operator, I want you to slew the camera to that position. So they then slew to that position. You can see that's highlighted by this magenta box right there. And then we start taking pictures of the ship, and we start collecting, things like the names of the ship and just whatever we're interested in for that particular day. So that whole evolution, the management of that is what I'm responsible for.
So, what are the challenges you would say in the job of your job?
Some of the challenges? Yeah, so I would say the major challenge is that we have a ton of data that's available to us, more than a person I think can reasonably consume. And so managing the amount of data and trying to pick through what we care about, what we don't care about. So this screen right here is a really great example. You can see, there's probably at least 30 or 40 different merchant ships that you can see on this screen, right? It's pretty hard for me to visually keep track of where all those guys are. They all have different names. And so I think the biggest challenge is trying to pick through and decide, hey, of these 30 guys, which ones are we actually interested in? That's a big part of why we have tactical coordinators on this crew, is so that one person could just be focused on what are we looking at next? What are we trying to find about these guys? And that allows the sensor operators to then kind of focus their efforts and then collect that data so that we can report it off the plane.
What are some skills that are good to have to be part of a P8 crew, personal skills?
Yeah, so I think that multitasking is probably one of the most important skills, and communication is another really important skill too. So a lot of the training that we go through is an exercise in communication, so speaking in really clear and concise language so that people can understand what you're trying to get them to do and what you're trying to tell them. So that happens both in the crew, where we have a very particular way that we talk. We're trying to use the least amount of words possible to get our point across and use common terminology. So you hear us use a lot of acronyms that we are very used to and understand very well, and it helps us speak in a more clear and concise way. So that happens on the crew, and then same thing when we are reporting all this stuff off board. So I talked about the co-tactical coordinator who's sitting at the very end of the rail behind me. His job on the crew is to communicate everything that we are taking images of and seeing on the plane, and trying to communicate it to people back home who are interested in that kind of stuff. So same thing when he's communicating that stuff off board, being very clear, very concise, and using up as little time as possible to try and say what he's trying to say.
Just last couple questions. Why is what we're doing out here important? What's the importance of the P8's mission, would you say?
Yeah, so the P8's mission is very important. The reason why this particular mission is important is for a couple of reasons. So the data that we pull into the plane is very important. In general, the military, the Navy and the military as a wider organization wants to know as much as possible about what's going on in the world. The P8 is uniquely capable of collecting a lot of that data. So like I said, we have things like radar and the camera that we can go out and in real time, we can collect on who is out there in the ocean as well as on the land, try and take pictures of it and then communicate that stuff back to home base. So that's a really big part of why the P8 is out here doing what it's doing. We've been doing this for a really long time, flying in international airspace and just collecting as much pattern of life data as we can on who is operating out here, right? So the P8 brings a lot of unique capabilities to that fight in that we have a really incredible range. So we can fly very far, very quickly. We have a lot of sensors on board that are able to collect a variety of data that's useful to both the Navy as well as other armed forces in the United States. I'm from Denver, Colorado. I joined the Navy for a variety of reasons. So I have some family that's been in the Navy and the Air Force. My grandpa, he was a teacher at the United States Air Force Academy, and he was very much involved in research and development for aircraft of various kinds. He never got to fly planes, and that was always kind of his great wish that he wanted to do, and he never got to do it in the military. But he worked a lot in the research and development field in the Air Force, and so I grew up listening to stories that he told, about chances that he got to talk to pilots and just working on the various aircraft that he worked on, and they were just fantastic stories. So I think that that's a big part of what really got me inspired to join the military and join aviation in particular.
What is it that you love about this job?
The thing that I like the most about this job is the flying. I'm an aviator by trade, a naval flight officer, and that's definitely my favorite part of the job. The reason why I really like flying so much, in particular in this aircraft, is because of our ability to be so flexible. So the P8 has a really unique capability to transition from one mission set to another. It's a multi-mission platform, so we're capable of doing anti-submarine warfare, surface warfare, and ISR, which stands for Intelligence, Surveillance, and Reconnaissance, which is what we're doing today. So to give an example of this, I have been on flights where we've been doing a lot of the mission set that we're doing today, doing intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, which involves identifying things on radar, looking at them on camera, and collecting that data. And we have a really unique ability to then get retasked to do other missions, right? So we might have some kind of ad hoc tasking come up all of a sudden, and then we can really quickly transition, put ourselves in a different place, and start collecting on different targets. That's part of what I really enjoy about this job. So what we're looking at right here, we found what is possibly a Chinese Luoyang out here. You can see it on our EO-IR camera. So again, this is electro-optical, so visible light spectrum, and then this is infrared, so the heat light spectrum. And the original way that we found him was we found him on radar, and then we slewed the camera to him, and then we found him on camera. So the way that you can see that happen is our electronic warfare operator will find him on his radar scope. He then displays it to me on our tactical situation display, which is this overview of the world. And you can see that's where our Luoyang is. So we changed his color to mark him as red so that we know that he's different from everybody else. And And then I tell our camera operator to slew the camera to that position, and he does. And then we just collect what data what we can, take a couple of pictures, and send all that information back home. Thanks.
Looks like we have, can't tell if those are vehicles or buildings there, those little black structures on the far side. Yep. To the far, they look like vehicles to me, but... looks like we got one antenna tower. Yeah, I think that might be a reflection off of windows or something. And then, alright, so we got one antenna tower right there, you see that? And then, see where that large radome is? There's a large radome, and there's two little ones right below it. Were you guys talking about IR? You said it was the sun or something? Yeah. Okay. You agree? That looks like little bright spots. Yeah, that little bright spot right by the water. Yeah. And there was some on the building. You see that one kind of flash on the building on EU? It looks a lot like a sun reflection. Looks like there's a vehicle right there. Near the, right next to the right of that large radome. That little black thing right there? Yeah, it does look like a truck of some kind. Now we're across the runway now. Okay, keep panning right. I think we're going to come up on another set of towers. Sorry, pan to the left. There we go. Okay, so in that shot we have 1, 2, 3 radomes, one by antenna tower, and then there's a fourth radome on the right hand side there. There's a ship right there. Can we zoom in on that, please? Video snap, an IR snap. Vessel in the harbor there. Say one more time. There's a vessel right there in the harbor. I saw that, yeah. I can't quite tell what it is, but it's definitely a vessel there. Harbor and one in port? Yeah. There's another, there's like two vehicles, so one on the actual runway and one on the taxiway there. Nice. Looks like steel trucks. Okay, and then there's looks like a kind of antenna farm down there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Then radomes down there in that little farm. That ship also looks like it has a couple cranes hanging off of it. Flight has that weather look a bit. How's the weather look bad? Straight ahead 5, we got to build up to about our 10 o'clock, and then probably our 3 o'clock we got to build up to. Copy, where are the tops of this? U.S. military aircraft, Papa 8 Alpha. This is Chinese Yushui. China has authority over the Nansha Island, including Yushui, and its adjacent waters. Leave immediately and keep far off, so as to avoid any misunderstanding. 国 P8A 军机，这里是中国永暑礁。中国对包括永暑礁在内的南沙群岛及其附近海域拥有主权，为避免误判，立即远离。There might be a truck on the very edge of the runway there. Right there at the like touchdown zone. Yeah. Especially since it's open. Yeah, that would be a vehicle. There's a truck parked out in the middle of nowhere there. Yeah. So that was the first one that we saw. Next to the three that were in a line. Now. Kerjanya. Flight comments, you got some weather up here, we're just going to divert right, but we got the standoff line, and yeah, we'll stay outside. Saw one more truck on the kind of road to the west side of that runway. That little guy? That little guy, there he is. Okay, there's a truck right there. Oh, no, we got the spot. Including Ruby Reef and its adjacent waters. Leave immediately and keep far off, so as to avoid any misunderstanding. 美国军机，这里是中国驻比礁，中国对包括驻比礁在内的南沙群岛及其附近海域拥有主权，为避免误判，立即远离。When you started with that, yeah, so like they like missed the first part of that. There's one truck by that building right there. You can keep heading left. I don't see any aircraft on the runway. Taxiway is 48. There we go, we're shot. We stayed a little bit further to the left to get the edge of all. There we go. Nice, wonderful. Like a vessel. Right there to the left of the cloud down behind it. Further north, like right there. You can't tell if that's where the south looks like the runway is breaking there. Yeah. What time do you call eyes on Subi Reef? 0530. Yep. Alright, looks like one antenna tower right there. Last image. Okay, looks like a big crane, static crane right there. There is a vessel. That looks like it's right next to the pier. Maybe it's come out of the cloud. There we go. Alright, gotta get an image of that. God, there's not a good jog. It's got a heck of a lot of radars on it if it's a tug. Yeah, I think there might be some other type of vessel. Island, gentlemen. Depart immediately. Depart immediately. I mean, United States military aircraft conduct lawful military operations in international airspace. And exercising these rights is guaranteed by international law. I'm operating with due regard to the rights and duties of all states.
I'm Lieutenant Jake Williams. I'm from Kansas City, Missouri. I'm the aircraft commander and mission commander for Combat Air Crew 4. My role is I'm the senior member on the crew. I'm responsible for the safety of flight of our flights and mission accomplishment for our day-to-day missions out here on deployment. Yes, I joined the Navy so I could fly. That was a lifelong goal of mine, and going to the Naval Academy afforded me that opportunity. And I was fortunate enough to select aviation, and 3 years later I'm in the seat that you see I'm in today, being able to be the senior member on this crew and flying operational missions as a part of VP-26. Yeah, so on a typical mission flight we have 3 pilots. I've got my 2 pilots here with me today. One pilot will fly the aircraft, the other pilot will handle most of the communications. Our primary role up here is to make sure we keep the aircraft safe during our mission sets, whereas our naval flight officer in the back is primarily focused on the mission. So we're keeping ourselves clear of any weather that may be on station. So the aircraft we're flying today is very similar to a Southwest Airlines jet. It's a 737-800 aircraft with a couple of modifications for our tactical mission set. So as you can see, if you were to look at a normal 737, this would look very familiar. However, we have a couple of extra panels and displays to support our mission set so that we can interface with the aircrew in the back of the aircraft, and also allows us to carry weapons and drop sonar buoys. Yeah, a typical mission length for us can be anywhere upwards of 9 hours. It definitely was a shock to the system for the first couple of flights, but once you're a couple months into it, they become routine. So flights in excess of 10 hours are usually not that big of a deal at this point. One of the skills we work on during training is communication with our crew members. Crew resource management is incredibly important to a multi-piloted aircraft like the one we fly today. And not only do we need to be able to communicate between the pilots, we also need to be able to communicate with our crew members in the back of the aircraft to ensure that we're able to accomplish the mission.
This lens is much easier because it's smooth. Yeah, okay.
Eyes off 1-6. Roger, 1-6. Yeah, that was up on uniform 3243.0. You can throw that U1 and go out again. So you want 243 guard and U1, correct? And go out again? Affirmative. Roger.